The queen heard my name and leapt to her feet, shouting, "He has arrived!" The stars were quiet that night, stretching across the sky like scattered diamonds on black velvet. On the planet Zurith, the capital of the Zurithian Empire, the city towers gleamed under the light of 3 moons. Its streets were filled with people and machines, a harmony of technology and life. But the air was tense, for rumors of a prophecy had stirred excitement and fear alike. In the heart of the empire, the grand palace rose above the city. Its walls were not only made of shining metal, but were covered with intricate carvings telling the history of the Zurithians. The queen's chamber at the very top held the throne made from a rare crystal that caught the light and fractured it into hundreds of colors. Queen Amara, the ruler of this vast empire, sat upon that throne, her mind deep in thought. She was a queen both respected and feared. Wise, careful, and far-seeing, she had ruled for decades. Yet despite all her knowledge, there was one matter she could not ignore: the prophecy of the stranger. It spoke of a being from another world, a creature unlike any Zurithian, who would arrive at the exact time of great need. This stranger was said to change the fate of the galaxy. Tonight, the warning lights of the palace blinked rapidly. A ship had been detected approaching the capital's orbit. Unlike the usual fleet of Zurithian craft, this ship was old and unfamiliar. Its hull bore the scars of time, but there was an unmistakable aura of power and purpose around it. The council of advisors gathered, whispering urgently, their voices a low hum against the palace's silence. Queen Amara's sharp ears caught every word. She did not need to see the ship. Her intuition told her that this was no ordinary visitor. When the captain of the palace watch spoke the name of the arriving stranger, Amara leapt to her feet. Her eyes shone bright with a mix of hope and fear. "He has arrived!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the marble halls. Down on the landing platform, the ship descended slowly. It was unlike the sleek, smooth crafts of the Zurithians. Its surface was rugged, with strange markings, and yet it seemed alive. Those who watched from below felt a shiver of curiosity and awe. The crowd of Zurithians held their breath, unsure what to expect. Inside the ship, the human commander, Kale, adjusted his jacket and checked his equipment. His eyes, a deep brown, scanned the control panel, noting the unusual energy readings from the planet below. He was calm, but his mind raced with calculations. His ship had been drifting for decades, powered by an ancient system only a few humans now remembered. The fact that it still worked was nothing short of a miracle. Kale had not expected to arrive in such a bustling city, among an alien race so advanced. Humans were considered myths here. Stories of their ingenuity and courage had been told for generations, but most Zurithians thought them extinct. Kale knew he was stepping into a world where everyone expected something extraordinary. He was aware of the prophecy, though he did not yet understand the full meaning of it. As his ship landed, the platform's energy shields opened with a soft hum. Guards in shining armor lined the edges, their weapons ready but not raised. They studied Kale carefully, noting his appearance. He was smaller and physically weaker than the Zurithians, whose forms were taller and stronger than humans. Yet there was an air about him, a quiet confidence that could not be ignored. The ramp lowered and Kale stepped out. His boots made a light sound against the metal floor, yet it seemed to echo across the silent plaza. He raised a hand in greeting, a simple gesture of peace. The crowd murmured. Some were curious, some were fearful. The queen's advisors whispered urgently, debating whether he was friend or foe. Queen Amara descended the grand staircase of her throne room to meet him personally. Her presence commanded attention. Every Zurithian in the room bowed instinctively, but Kale did not bow. He merely met her gaze steadily, with respect and calm. It was a human gesture, simple yet full of meaning. "Welcome to Zurith," the queen said, her voice firm but not harsh. "I am Queen Amara." "You have traveled far, stranger. Tell me what brings you to my empire." Kale bowed slightly, acknowledging her authority. "I come in peace, your majesty," he said clearly. "I do not know why I have been brought here, but I wish to understand, to help if I can." The queen studied him closely. His words were simple, yet they carried honesty. He did not boast, he did not demand, but he spoke with clarity. This was unusual for someone from a species that had not been seen for centuries. She felt a spark of recognition, a confirmation that this was the stranger of the prophecy. "Then you shall come with me," she said, motioning for him to follow. Guards moved aside, creating a path. Kale walked beside her, observing the grandeur of the palace. The halls were vast, adorned with paintings and statues depicting battles, discoveries, and great leaders. Each artifact spoke of centuries of knowledge and tradition. Yet Kale noticed something missing, the sense of flexibility, of thinking beyond what was known. They entered a large chamber where the Council of Elders waited. These Zorithians were masters of science, war, and governance. They watched Kale with suspicion. "You claim to come in peace," one elder said, his voice low and cautious. "How do we know you are not a threat?" "Your kind is unknown to us," Kale smiled faintly. "I am not here to harm anyone. I come because I believe that understanding and cooperation are stronger than fear and war. If given the chance, I can help your people see things differently." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen many species across the galaxy, but none quite like this. Humans were unpredictable. They did not rely solely on power or technology. Their strength lay in creativity, in thinking beyond limits, and sometimes in making impossible choices. Queen Amara spoke again, her voice carrying authority over the murmurs. "The prophecy speaks of one who will arrive when the galaxy faces a threat unseen, a time when old ways are not enough. Perhaps this is that one, but he must prove himself not with force but with mind and heart." Kale nodded. "Then I will do my best, Your Majesty." The queen gave a small smile, rare and warm. It was the first time anyone had seen her truly at ease in decades. "You will not walk alone," she said. "We will guide you, but the path you take will test your ingenuity, your courage, and your resolve." Outside, the city of Zurith continued its hum of activity, oblivious to the quiet tension inside the palace. Yet some citizens sensed that this night was unlike any other. Whispers spread. The stranger had arrived, and with him change was coming. As Kale was escorted to a guest chamber, he took a moment to reflect. He had spent years drifting in space, surviving on little, relying on old knowledge and human resilience. Now, he was in the presence of a civilization far advanced, yet rigid in their ways. He knew he would need every skill he had, strategy, diplomacy, and empathy, to navigate this world. That night, Kale looked out from his chamber window. The moons of Zurith hung in the sky, casting silver light over the city. He felt a strange sense of destiny. He did not fully understand the prophecy, but he understood this. His arrival was no accident. Something great awaited him, and something greater than him would depend on what he did next. Sleep did not come easily. His mind raced with possibilities, plans, and questions. Who were his allies? Who would oppose him? What threats lurked in shadows, unseen by even the most watchful eyes? Kale did not fear the unknown. Humans thrived in it. Their minds had evolved to find patterns, to solve problems, and to act when others hesitated. By the time dawn broke over Zurith, painting the sky in streaks of pink and gold, Kale had made a decision. He would meet the challenges of this new world head-on. He would prove that humans, though small and fragile in appearance, could change the course of empires. And he would honor the trust of the queen, who had seen in him what many others could not, a spark of something extraordinary. The palace stirred as the day began. Guards prepared for new duties, advisors gathered for meetings. And in the throne room, Queen Amara awaited, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She knew that today the first steps of a great journey would begin. And she knew, deep in her heart, that the stranger who had arrived was the key to the Empire's future. Kale took his first steps into the hallways of the palace, unaware of the eyes following him, of the whispers spreading, and of the stories about to be written. This was the moment when legend began, not with fire or destruction, but with arrival, with curiosity, and with courage. The human had arrived. The queen had seen him. And the galaxy, though it did not yet know it, was about to change forever. The morning sun spread golden light across the palace of Zurith, turning the crystal towers into glowing beacons that reflected every color of the rainbow. Commander Kale walked through the grand hallways, guided by Queen Amara's attendants. Every step he took echoed softly against the polished floors. Though the palace was immense and magnificent, Kale noticed something that the Zorithians had overlooked. Small details, patterns, and possibilities hidden in plain sight. Today was the day of the trials. These were not tests of strength or battle skill. They were trials of the mind, designed to measure wisdom, creativity, and leadership. Queen Amara believed that the prophecy would be fulfilled not by brute force, but by someone who could think differently, someone who could solve problems the Zorithians themselves could not. The first chamber was called the Hall of Patterns. Its walls were covered with glowing symbols that shifted constantly, creating complex sequences no eye could fully follow. The Council of Elders stood at the edges, watching Kale with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "Your task is simple," one elder said, his voice calm but firm. "Decipher the patterns and reveal the hidden path." Kale studied the walls carefully. The symbols were intricate, seemingly random, yet they repeated in subtle ways. While the Zorithians had relied on logic and computation to understand patterns, Kale's mind approached them differently. He imagined the sequences as musical notes, as movements of the stars, as connections in stories he had learned long ago. Minutes passed, then an hour. The council whispered among themselves, doubt rising in their eyes. Kale did not speak immediately. Instead, he traced the shapes in the air with his hand, following the rhythms he sensed in the shifting light. Slowly, he began to see a path, a route that the symbols formed when imagined as a journey rather than a code. With a confident gesture, Kale pointed to a series of symbols that seemed insignificant to others. "Here," he said, "follow this sequence." It forms the path through the hall. The symbols glowed brighter and then shifted to reveal a hidden doorway. The council gasped. No Zorithian had ever solved this trial so quickly or with such insight. Even Queen Amara's lips curved in a faint smile. Kale had passed the first trial, not by force, but by imagination, by seeing the unseen. The next trial was the Chamber of Diplomacy. Here, Kale was presented with leaders from several planetary systems that were loosely allied with the Zorithian Empire. Each leader was known for cunning and strategy, and they would test Kale with scenarios of negotiation, trade, and conflict resolution. A holographic table lit up in the center, showing maps, resources, and fleets. "Your task is to unite these leaders for the defense of the Empire," the elder instructed. "You must convince them to cooperate without threats or bribes." Kale studied the holograms, noting the strengths, weaknesses, and desires of each leader. Some prized wealth, others sought recognition, some desired security for their people. He began to speak, clearly and calmly, listening as much as he spoke. He asked questions, invited suggestions, and carefully considered each leader's needs. At first, the leaders resisted. They were proud, used to command, and suspicious of a human, someone they barely understood. But Kale did not pressure them. Instead, he shared stories of his own experiences, examples of cooperation from Earth, tales of humans who had overcome great challenges by working together. Slowly, the mood in the room shifted. Leaders who had been ready to argue began to nod, then to suggest compromises. By the time the trial ended, Kale had forged a tentative alliance stronger than any previous agreements. The council was astonished. Humans, they realized, could inspire trust where technology and rules could not. The third trial was unexpected. Kale was led to the Hall of Innovation, a chamber filled with alien machines that no human had seen before. Some floated in midair, others hummed with energy, and each machine had a purpose known only to the Zorithians. Kale's challenge was simple in words. Repair what is broken, improve what can be improved. Kale moved slowly, examining each device. He did not touch anything at first. Instead, he observed patterns of energy, sound, and movement. The Zorithians around him assumed he would fail. Their technology was too advanced for a human to handle. Then Kale began to work. He adjusted levers slightly, connected circuits differently, and reimagined the machine's functions in ways no Zorithian had considered. One device designed to purify water had been broken for years because its components were rigidly fixed. Kale repositioned elements, allowing the device to work smoothly, even better than before. The council gasped. Machines that had been considered impossible to repair now functioned flawlessly. Kale had not relied on brute strength or brute force knowledge. He had relied on creativity, observation, and adaptability, the hallmarks of human thinking. The final trial of the day was the trial of insight. In this test, Kale was led into a room that was entirely dark, save for a single floating orb of light. The elder explained, "The orb represents knowledge, but knowledge alone is not enough. You must see beyond what is given. You must predict and understand that which is hidden." Kale took a deep breath. He had learned in space that the universe often hid its truths. He closed his eyes and let his mind reach outward, imagining the energy around the orb, the patterns of thought that created it, the intentions behind it. Slowly, he began to trace invisible threads connecting the orb to other points in the room. His hand moved, guiding light from the orb to illuminate hidden pathways. The darkness receded, revealing symbols, objects, and patterns previously invisible. Kale had not only seen what was hidden, he had understood the connections. He had mapped the room in his mind, predicted the movements of the light, and revealed the knowledge it concealed. Queen Amara watched silently, her heart racing. Each trial confirmed her belief that this human was extraordinary. Not because he was strong, not because he wielded weapons or advanced technology, but because he thought in ways no Zerithian had considered. When the trials ended, Kale stood in the center of the Hall of Insight, breathing steadily. The Council of Elders murmured among themselves, a mixture of awe and uncertainty. They had witnessed something they had not expected. A human could match, even surpass, the intellect of their greatest minds when given the right challenges. The Queen stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with authority. "Kale," she said, "you have proven yourself in ways we did not imagine possible. You are not merely a stranger from a distant world. You are a mind capable of seeing beyond boundaries, a mind that can guide us through challenges unseen." Kale inclined his head respectfully. "I am honored, Your Majesty. I will do everything I can to help your people." The council nodded, some reluctantly, some with genuine admiration. Kale had passed the trials of the mind, but he knew this was only the beginning. Greater challenges awaited, challenges that would test his courage, his creativity, and his ability to lead. Later, as he walked through the palace gardens, Kale noticed how the Zerithians moved in precise, measured ways. Their lives were guided by rules, structure, and tradition. They were strong, disciplined, and brilliant, yet something vital was missing: the flexibility to adapt, the willingness to imagine beyond what was known. Kale understood that humans could offer something unique. They could inspire change not by overpowering others, but by thinking differently, by seeing possibilities that no one else could. And he knew that this gift would be needed sooner than anyone realized. The Queen joined him in the gardens, her eyes bright with thought. "You have done well today, Kale," she said softly. "But the trials you faced were only the first step. There are dangers approaching, shadows that no council or army can easily defeat. Your mind, your perspective will be tested in ways neither of us can yet imagine." Kale nodded, feeling a sense of both responsibility and purpose. He had traveled through space, surviving against odds that would have destroyed most humans. Now he had arrived at a new challenge: to use his mind to protect not just one world but a galaxy. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the gardens. Kale watched the city below, seeing the towers, the streets, and the people moving like a living organism. He felt a strange connection, not just to the Empire, but to the possibilities that lay ahead. The human spark within him burned brighter than ever, ready to face the trials that would define not just his destiny, but the destiny of countless worlds. As night fell, the palace lights glimmered, reflecting Kale's determination. He was no longer merely a traveler or a stranger. He was a participant in something much greater, a journey that would test human ingenuity against the vast, unyielding expanse of the galaxy. And as he closed his eyes that night, Kale felt a quiet certainty: he would not fail. He could not fail, for in every human heart was a strength beyond measure, the ability to think, to adapt, and to rise when the impossible demanded it. The trials of the mind were over for today, but Kale knew they were only the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, tests of courage, and decisions that could shape the future. And through it all, he would remain human, and in that humanity lay the key to the prophecy and to the survival of the galaxy itself. The sun rose over Zurith, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and crimson. The palace, still gleaming from the trials of the previous day, seemed peaceful. Yet beneath the beauty of the city, tension stirred. Not everyone welcomed Kale, the human stranger. In the hidden corners of the Empire, whispers of rebellion spread. Some council members, uneasy with the Queen's faith in a human, secretly plotted to regain control. They feared change, feared a being who could think differently, who might disrupt centuries of order. These dissenters had been quietly organizing, gathering allies and weapons, preparing for a moment when they could strike. Kale sensed the unease even before it became visible. As he walked through the palace corridors, he noticed subtle signs: doors left slightly open, shadows that moved too quickly, guards whose eyes lingered with suspicion. Humans, he knew, often had to rely not only on courage but on awareness, intuition, and strategy. The first sign of danger came at midday. Alarms rang across the city. The palace guards rushed to their stations. Kale followed, curiosity and caution mixing in his chest. From the grand balcony, he saw the chaos unfold below. Rebel forces had launched a surprise attack, aiming straight for the queen. Their ships were fast, their weapons deadly, and their intent clear. They wanted to eliminate Kale, and with him the hope of change he represented. Queen Amara stood firm, her gaze sharp. "Kale," she said, "you must help me protect the palace. This is more than a test now, it is a real threat. Will you stand with us?" Kale nodded. "I will, your majesty. Lead me to the strategy room." In the palace's control chamber, holographic displays showed enemy movements. The rebels had expected the guards to respond in predictable ways, forming a standard defense pattern. But Kale saw something different. He noticed a gap in their formation, a weakness the Zorithians had not anticipated. "Here," he said, pointing at the display. "They are fast, but they are overconfident. Their formation has a blind spot on the eastern flank. If we focus there, we can disrupt their advance without unnecessary loss." The Zorithian generals exchanged uncertain glances. No human had ever commanded them before. Yet Kale spoke with clarity and confidence. He instructed the guards to split into two groups, one to hold the front, the other to strike the weak point. He also suggested using the palace's architecture to their advantage, creating barriers and traps that could slow the attackers without harming the city. The queen listened carefully, trusting his judgment. She knew that Kale's strength was not in combat, but in thinking differently. The human mind could see patterns and possibilities that even the Zorithians, with all their technology, could miss. As the battle began, Kale moved through the palace halls, coordinating defenses, giving instructions, and inspiring the guards. The rebels, confident in their numbers and power, were caught off guard by the unexpected tactics. They faltered as traps slowed their advance, and the defensive strategy exploited their weakness. Kale saw a group of rebels attempting to breach the eastern gate. Without hesitation, he ran toward them, using the palace's layout to his advantage. Narrow corridors and sudden turns allowed him to lead the attackers into ambushes set by the guards. His quick thinking and adaptability kept him safe, while turning the tide of battle. Outside, Queen Amara's presence inspired the loyal forces. Her voice rang out, commanding attention and respect, yet even she could not anticipate every move. The human Kale became the pivot around which the defense succeeded. His strategy, creative and bold, compensated for the Zorithians' rigidity. As the first wave of rebels was pushed back, Kale noticed another threat, a hidden ship descending toward the palace gardens. It carried a squad of elite attackers, trained to eliminate the human and strike fear into the hearts of the defenders. Kale acted swiftly. Using his understanding of human tactics and improvisation, he created a plan on the spot. He instructed guards to activate the garden's energy barriers selectively, channeling the attackers into narrow paths where they could be surrounded. At the same time, he coordinated with palace technicians to use defensive drones, previously dormant, to block their advance. The attackers, trained for direct assault, were ill-prepared for this unorthodox defense. Kale's mind worked quickly, calculating possibilities, anticipating moves, and adapting continuously. The battle was intense, but the rebels could not overcome the combined efforts of Kale's strategy and the loyalty of the palace defenders. One by one, their ships were disabled, their squads captured, and their morale broken. Finally, the palace gates were secure, and the remaining rebel forces retreated. Silence fell over the city, broken only by the low hum of the repaired defensive systems. Kale stood with Queen Amara on the grand balcony, watching the last of the attackers flee. The human had survived his first true battle in the Zorithian Empire, not through brute strength, but through intellect, creativity, and courage. The queen's eyes shone with pride and relief. "You have done more than survive, Kale," she said. "You have protected not just the palace, but the future of this empire." Kale shook his head slightly. "I only did what I could. Your people fought bravely, and together we found a way." The council of elders approached, some with grudging respect, others still skeptical but subdued. They had witnessed something unprecedented. A human, physically smaller and less powerful, had successfully led the defense against a major rebellion. It was proof that strength alone was not the measure of leadership or capability. That evening, the palace held a gathering to honor the defenders. Kale was at the center, but he did not seek attention. He observed quietly, noting the reactions of the Zerithians. Many were inspired, realizing that adaptability, courage, and quick thinking could complement their technology and tradition. One elder, a woman known for her strict adherence to rules, approached Kale. "I doubted you," she admitted, "but today I have seen what humans are capable of. Your thinking, it is different, yet it is powerful." Kale smiled faintly. "Thank you." Humans have learned to survive in many ways, often against impossible odds. That experience can be useful anywhere, even in a palace under attack. Queen Amara placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "This battle has shown me that the prophecy was not about strength alone, nor about destiny in isolation. It is about the qualities you bring, courage, creativity, and the ability to inspire others. You are more than a human visitor, you are a guide, a strategist, and a symbol." Kale felt the weight of her words, but also a surge of determination. He had arrived as a stranger, and now he was becoming an integral part of the Empire's story. The path ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to meet it. That night, Kale stood in the palace gardens looking up at the stars. The battle had been won, but he knew it was only the beginning. Rebellion had not been fully quelled. Other factions would rise, testing the limits of strategy, diplomacy, and courage. He thought of the humans back on Earth, of the ingenuity and resilience that defined them. Those qualities, he realized, were what he would need to rely on again and again. As he contemplated the coming days, Kale reflected on the lesson the battle had taught him. The Zerithians were brilliant but rigid. Their reliance on technology and tradition gave them strength, but also created blind spots. A fresh perspective, human perspective, could turn those weaknesses into opportunities. Meanwhile, Queen Amara met with her advisors in a private chamber. "Kale has changed everything," she said quietly. "Not just by winning the battle, but by showing us what we could not see. The galaxy is shifting, and we must be ready for what comes next." One of the council members, a stern man with sharp eyes, frowned. "Your Majesty, while Kale has been effective, some still question his place here. He is human after all. Can we fully trust him?" Amara's gaze was unwavering. "I do not measure trust by species. I measure it by action, by insight, by the ability to adapt and protect. Kale has proven himself today. That is enough." Back in the gardens, Kale felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. The human spirit, he realized, was not defined by physical power, but by adaptability, courage, and intelligence. He had led, inspired, and survived. Yet he knew there would be harder challenges ahead, tests of loyalty, strategy, and perhaps even life itself. The night was calm, but Kale's mind was alert. He had learned that survival in the galaxy required more than preparation. It required imagination, understanding, and the ability to act when others hesitated. Humanity had survived for millennia because of these qualities. Now they were his tools in a new world, a new empire, and a new prophecy. As the moons of Zurith hung high in the sky, Kale resolved that he would continue to prove what humans could achieve. The rebellion had been a warning, but also an opportunity, a chance to show that courage and intelligence could overcome fear and tradition. And as the stars twinkled above, he felt the quiet pulse of destiny. The trials of the mind had prepared him, but the trials of action had just begun. Kale knew that the galaxy was vast, filled with threats and challenges yet unseen. But he also knew this. Humans, with their creativity, courage, and adaptability, could face the impossible and prevail. The city of Zurith had begun to heal. Streets that had been damaged in the recent rebellion were being repaired, and the citizens went about their lives with renewed hope. Yet, the battle had revealed a truth that could not be ignored. Threats to the Empire extended far beyond the palace walls. A warlord from a distant sector had begun gathering forces, seeking to conquer planets across the galaxy. Queen Amara called Kale to the council chamber early one morning. Holograms of distant star systems floated in the air, showing fleets, planetary defenses, and trade routes. "Kale," she said, her voice steady, "we face enemies who will not hesitate to destroy what we hold dear. We must form alliances beyond our borders. You will lead this mission." Kale studied the maps. Each planet had its own culture, its own priorities, and its own fears. Many had resisted Zerithian influence in the past. Convincing them to join a common defense would require more than power. It would require understanding, trust, and ingenuity. "I understand," Kale replied. "We cannot rely solely on strength. We must show them the benefits of cooperation, and why unity is the only way to survive. The first mission took Kale to the planet Violia, a world of forests and oceans, inhabited by a species known for their pride and independence. Their leaders were wary of outsiders, especially the Zorithians. Kale had been warned that diplomacy here would be delicate. He arrived with only a small delegation, intentionally unthreatening. As he stepped from the shuttle, he saw the Violians observing him with curiosity and caution. They were tall and slender, with blue-tinted skin and eyes that seemed to glow in low light. Their culture valued conversation, honesty, and clever thinking. Kale approached the leaders respectfully. "I come as a guest, not a conqueror," he said. "I bring a message of cooperation for the safety of all worlds. Together we can prevent the suffering that comes from unchecked war." The Violians were skeptical. They had long resisted outside influence and remembered past conflicts with the Zorithians. Kale knew that fear and history could not be dismissed. Instead, he listened, asked questions, and acknowledged their concerns. He shared examples of how humans had solved conflicts through diplomacy, negotiation, and mutual understanding. Stories of Earth's history that illustrated the power of collaboration over dominance. Hours turned into days as Kale met with different councils, discussed trade, security, and shared values. Slowly, the Violians began to see that Kale's approach was not a threat, but an opportunity. Unlike Zorithians, who relied on authority and power, Kale relied on respect and reasoning. By the end of the week, the Violians agreed to join a defensive alliance, their fleets ready to assist if the warlord struck. The next stop was the desert world of Tharun, home to a species of traders and inventors. Here, Kale faced a different challenge. The Tharunians were suspicious of everyone, particularly humans. They valued self-interest above loyalty, and Kale had to find a way to appeal to both their pragmatism and their desire for survival. Kale began by observing the Tharunians' marketplaces, studying their patterns of trade and interaction. He noticed how they responded to threats, how they valued innovation, and how they respected those who could provide solutions. Using this insight, Kale presented a plan that showed how joining the alliance could protect their trade routes and promote prosperity for all. The Tharunians tested him, proposing scenarios that would expose any weakness in his strategy. Kale welcomed these challenges. He showed them simulations of possible attacks, solutions for defense, and creative approaches that combined human ingenuity with Zorithian technology. The Tharunians were impressed. They had never encountered someone who could see the bigger picture while also considering the smallest details. By the end of their discussions, they agreed to join the alliance, adding their technology and knowledge to the growing coalition. As Kale traveled from planet to planet, forming alliances, he faced many obstacles. Some worlds refused outright, skeptical of humans and Zorithians alike. Others demanded proof of the alliance's effectiveness. Each time, Kale relied on a combination of logic, empathy, and creativity. He adapted his strategies to fit the culture, values, and priorities of each species. Through these efforts, Kale demonstrated what made humans unique. While Zorithians often relied on rigid hierarchy, tradition, and technological dominance, Kale's approach was flexible. He considered motivations, emotions, and imagination. He built trust, inspired hope, and showed that cooperation could achieve results impossible through force alone. Back on Zurith, Queen Amara monitored his progress with satisfaction. "Kale is more than a strategist," she told the council. "He is a bridge between species, showing them that unity is not weakness but strength. Humans may be small, but their thinking is vast." Despite successes, Kale remained aware of the growing threat. The warlord, known only as Lord Varen, was building a massive fleet, conquering weaker systems and sowing fear. Intelligence reports indicated that Varen's forces were moving closer to the core territories of the Empire. Kale knew that alliances alone would not be enough. Strategic planning, coordination, and adaptability would be critical. Kale called a meeting with representatives from all the allied worlds. The hall was filled with leaders, soldiers, and advisors from dozens of systems. Holographic displays projected maps, showing fleet positions, planetary defenses, and possible invasion routes. The meeting was tense. Leaders from different cultures argued, debated, and sometimes refused to agree. Kale stood calmly at the center. "We face a common enemy," he said. Varen does not distinguish between planets, species, or alliances. If we do not act together, we will each face destruction alone. But together, we can create a strategy that protects everyone. He presented a plan that combined human ingenuity with Zorithian technology. Fleet movements would be coordinated, defensive systems synchronized, and communication networks shared. Kale also introduced unorthodox tactics, diversions, decoys, and unexpected maneuvers designed to confuse the enemy and exploit weaknesses. Some leaders were skeptical. "These are dangerous gambles," one said. "What if they fail?" Kale smiled, calm and confident. The enemy expects predictable strategies. They do not expect creativity, adaptability, or courage. That is our advantage. We must use our minds as well as our fleets. Humans have survived against impossible odds because of this, and now we will use it together. The meeting ended with tentative agreements. Leaders who had once doubted humans and Zorithians began to see the value of cooperation. Kale's words, actions, and strategy had convinced them that survival depended not on power alone, but on understanding, innovation, and unity. While alliances were forming, Kale worked tirelessly behind the scenes. He studied enemy patterns, analyzed supply routes, and created simulations of possible attacks. He trained fleet commanders, combining Zorithian tactics with human problem-solving techniques. Slowly, the coalition began to function as a single, coordinated force, ready to face the looming threat of Lord Varen. Amid these preparations, Kale had moments of quiet reflection. He thought of humanity's journey across space, of the struggles and triumphs that had defined his species. He realized that human strength lay not in size or power, but in adaptability, creativity, and courage. These qualities had allowed humans to survive in unpredictable and often hostile environments, and now they were being applied on a galactic scale. One evening, Kale stood on the observation deck of the flagship, looking at the stars. Fleets from allied worlds were assembling in orbit, a stunning sight of cooperation and determination. The human felt a quiet sense of responsibility. The decisions he made, the alliances he forged, and the strategies he planned could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. Queen Amara joined him silently, her eyes reflecting the same constellations above. "You have done more than I imagined, Kale," she said softly. "You have not only united the stars, but you have shown that humans are more than myths. They are capable of greatness that inspires even the most advanced civilizations." Kale shook his head, humble. "I have only done what humans have always done, adapt, survive, and try to see solutions where others see only obstacles. We are not perfect, but we are persistent." Amara smiled. "And that persistence is exactly what the galaxy needs. Varen underestimates you, and he will regret it. The alliances you have built are strong because they trust you, not only as a strategist, but as a human being." The days that followed were filled with rigorous planning. Kale coordinated fleet movements, managed supply lines, and mediated disagreements between leaders. Tensions flared at times, but Kale's calm presence and problem-solving abilities kept the coalition united. Slowly, a sense of confidence grew among the allies. They began to believe that, together, they could face even the most dangerous adversary. Finally, the day came when all allied forces were assembled. Starships from dozens of systems floated in formation above Zurith, their engines glowing softly. Soldiers, pilots, and diplomats moved with purpose, ready to defend their homes and their people. Kale stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the assembled fleets. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly to himself. "The battle to come will test every skill we have, but with courage, creativity, and unity we will prevail." Queen Amara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Kale," she said, "you have given us hope. Your human mind has become the key to our survival. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Kale nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of determination. He was no longer just a visitor from another world. He was a leader, a strategist, and a symbol of what humanity could achieve. The Alliance of the Stars was ready, and through it, the galaxy would see the strength of human ingenuity. As the flagship prepared to depart for the first coordinated patrols, Kale looked out at the endless expanse of space. Lord Varen's forces were gathering, shadows moving across the galaxy like a storm waiting to strike. But Kale was not afraid. He had formed alliances, inspired trust, and created a strategy that leveraged the best qualities of every species. Humans had faced impossible odds before, and they had survived. Now, in this distant galaxy, Kale intended to prove that human courage, intelligence, and creativity could shape the future of entire star systems. And so, as the fleets of the Alliance began their journey, a new chapter in the galaxy's story was about to unfold. A chapter where humans, though small in number, became the spark of hope that could illuminate the darkest reaches of space. The galaxy was quiet but tense. From orbit above Zurith, Kale watched the stars, knowing that Lord Varen's forces were approaching. Reports from scouts indicated a massive fleet moving through the outer systems, leaving destruction in their wake. Planets had fallen without a fight, and entire populations had fled. Yet Kale felt no fear. He knew that the strength of the Alliance, combined with human ingenuity, could turn the tide. Queen Amara stood beside him, her eyes scanning the holographic display of the enemy fleet. "Varen believes he can overwhelm us with power alone," she said. "He does not know that strategy, courage, and unity can defeat even the strongest force." Kale nodded. "He expects predictability," he said. "We will give him anything but that." The Allied fleet was vast, composed of starships from dozens of worlds. Each species contributed its unique strengths. The Zorithians with advanced technology and disciplined troops, the Virelians with rapid deployment ships, the Tharunians with ingenious defensive systems, and others who had joined along the way. But at the heart of the fleet's coordination was Kale, human, small in number, yet immense in thought and vision. Kale gathered the fleet commanders in the strategy room. Holographic maps showed enemy positions, supply lines, and possible approaches. "Varen's strength is in direct assault," Kale explained. "He relies on overwhelming his enemies. We will use that against him. Our fleet will appear divided, weaker than it is, drawing him into a trap. At the same time, our hidden forces will flank his rear, cutting off escape and supply." Some commanders looked uncertain. "It is risky," one said. "If Varen anticipates this, we could be destroyed." Kale smiled, calm and confident. "That is why we must act unpredictably. Humans have survived by adapting, by seeing solutions others do not. Trust in strategy, trust in your people, and trust in the unexpected." The fleet moved into position. Sensors scanned the darkness of space, picking up faint signatures of the enemy approaching. Kale watched, calculating every possibility. He knew that timing, coordination, and innovation would decide the battle. The first engagement began in the uncharted nebula of Corrin's belt. The enemy fleet charged, confident in their superior numbers. Kale's command appeared divided, smaller ships positioned in ways that seemed vulnerable. Lord Varen, seeing what appeared to be weakness, advanced aggressively. Then Kale's plan unfolded. Hidden squadrons emerged from the nebula's shadows, attacking the enemy flanks. Energy barriers and defensive drones, deployed earlier under Kale's instructions, disrupted the enemy formations. Confusion spread across Varen's fleet, which had expected a straightforward battle. Kale's voice was calm but commanding over the comm channels. "Focus on the gaps in their shields. Use the environment to your advantage. Move as one, but think for yourself when needed." The Allied forces adapted quickly. Zorithian ships used precision energy strikes, Virelian fleets intercepted escape routes, and Tharunians deployed decoy vessels that diverted enemy fire. Kale's human insight allowed the coalition to respond dynamically, taking advantage of weaknesses the enemy did not know they had. Lord Varen, aboard his massive flagship, realized the trap too late. His fleet was surrounded, cut off from reinforcements, and facing attacks from directions they could not defend simultaneously. Fury and panic spread among his commanders. They had underestimated the human strategist at the heart of the Alliance. Kale, seeing an opportunity, issued a bold command. "Target the flagship directly. Use coordinated strikes to disable the engines and shields. The rest will follow." The Allied fleets moved with precision. Energy beams and projectiles struck Varen's flagship from all sides. Shields flared and weakened, then failed entirely. The massive vessel shuddered under the combined assault. Lord Varen's voice, angry and desperate, could not command his fleet effectively. Finally, the flagship's engines failed, leaving it drifting. Kale signaled the final attack. "Disable the weapons, but spare the lives of the crew. This is a victory, not a massacre." Allied ships fired with precision, neutralizing the enemy weapon systems. Varen's fleet, seeing their leader incapacitated, surrendered or retreated. The battle was over. The galaxy, for the moment, was safe. On the bridge of the flagship, Kale exhaled. The human strategist had turned a desperate situation into victory, yet he knew this was not the end, just a beginning. Alliances had been tested, trust had been built, and a new understanding had formed among the stars. Queen Amara joined him, her eyes shining with pride. "Kale," she said, "you have done more than win a battle. You have united species, built trust where none existed, and proven that one human can change the fate of an empire." Kale shook his head, humble. "I only did what humans have always done, adapt, think, and act when it matters. Your people fought bravely. Without them, this would not have been possible." The queen smiled. She understood the truth of his words. Humans were not the strongest physically, but their minds, courage, and creativity made them extraordinary. Kale had shown qualities that inspired the galaxy, proving the prophecy right. In the aftermath of the battle, Kale helped coordinate relief efforts for planets affected by Varen's attacks. Supplies were delivered, defenses strengthened, and refugees returned to their homes. Kale worked tirelessly, ensuring that cooperation, not fear, guided the rebuilding of the galaxy. Across the Empire, stories spread of the human who had arrived from the stars, led with intelligence, and united countless worlds. Children spoke of him with wonder, soldiers respected him for his courage, and leaders acknowledged the value of human perspective. One evening, Kale walked through the gardens of the palace. The stars reflected in the crystal fountains, and a soft breeze carried the scent of alien flowers. Queen Amara joined him silently, watching the calm of the galaxy. "You have fulfilled the prophecy," she said quietly. "Not because of power, but because of your mind, your courage, and your ability to inspire. You have changed how the galaxy will view humanity forever." Kale nodded. "It was never about me alone. Humans have qualities that can make a difference anywhere: creativity, empathy, and the willingness to act when needed. That is what matters." Amara smiled. "Then perhaps the galaxy has learned a valuable lesson. Strength is not only in numbers or technology, but in thinking differently. Your arrival has shown that, Kale." For the first time, Kale allowed himself to feel truly at peace. He had come from a distant, forgotten world, arriving unexpectedly in an alien empire. He had faced skepticism, danger, and rebellion, yet he had triumphed, not by overpowering others, but by inspiring them, guiding them, and thinking in ways that no one else had. The galaxy's night sky stretched endlessly above them. Stars blinked like watchful eyes, witnessing the dawn of a new era. Planets that had once been isolated now knew the strength of unity, and worlds that had feared each other now worked together under a shared purpose. Kale thought of Earth, of humanity's history filled with struggle, invention, and resilience. The same qualities had guided him here, across light years of space, to a prophecy he had only begun to understand. Humans were small, fragile, and limited in appearance, but immense in mind, spirit, and determination. The queen turned to him. "What will you do now, Kale?" she asked. "I will continue to help," Kale replied. "There will always be challenges, always threats. But as long as humans, and others willing to see differently, remain, the galaxy has hope." Amara placed her hand on his shoulder. "Then you have my trust and the gratitude of every world in this alliance. You have shown what it means to be human and what humans can achieve." Kale smiled, quietly proud, yet aware that the journey was far from over. The galaxy was safe for now, but vigilance would always be needed. New threats would rise, new alliances would form, and new decisions would test the wisdom, courage, and creativity he had come to represent. But for this moment, the stars were calm. Kale stood among allies and friends, knowing that one human had changed the course of history. One human had fulfilled the prophecy not through force, but through thought, courage, and heart. In the years that followed, Kale's story became legend. Humans were no longer myths whispered in distant corners of the galaxy. They were recognized as a species capable of extraordinary insight, bravery, and innovation. The queen often told her people that the human who arrived from the stars had saved the empire, and in doing so, had reminded them all of the power of creativity, courage, and unity. Kale continued to serve the queen, advising, guiding, and inspiring. His presence reminded everyone that even a single individual, no matter how small in number or fragile in appearance, could change the course of history. And so, the prophecy was fulfilled. Not through sheer power or technology, but through human ingenuity, courage, and the ability to see possibilities beyond the obvious. The galaxy had witnessed the triumph of humanity, and a new era of hope, cooperation, and understanding began. As Kale looked out across the stars one final time, he whispered quietly, almost to himself, "This is only the beginning. Humans have more to give, and together the galaxy can achieve anything." The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to the human who had arrived, fulfilled a prophecy, and reshaped the destiny of countless worlds. And in the vastness of space, hope burned brighter than any star, lighting the path for all who dared to think, to act, and to believe.